Hey everyone, Shawn Clement here, Wisdom in Golf in our wonderful backyard. And today we're talking football. Man, you are going to see an amazing drill just by throwing the football around and putting two and two together, and it's going to help your golf game like you wouldn't believe. Stay tuned and find out. If I was throwing your standard football, I would be doing that overhead, of course. So I would have a target, whether it's a moving target or a stationary target. No worries, I'm going that way. So because I have a target, my brain knows exactly when to let go of this football. Without the target, I wouldn't know when to let go. When I have students throwing the club, oftentimes when they're throwing the club at first, they tend to throw it over their shoulders. That's why it's very important that you find a very safe place to do this. And they realize after that because they didn't have a target, there was no way they could let go of the club in that direction. When I take a student and I do a throw from overhand this way, they always know when to let go of the club because they have a target, and it's something that's very simple to do. So when I'm throwing that football overhead toward that white flag, there we go. So notice how my brain goes to the ground, uses the ground to get my body out of the way so I can release to that target. This is called a kinetic chain. It's built in. Millions of years of evolution has brought us there. This is a gift. So, we call this an automated system in the words of Gabrielle Wolf and Rebecca Luthwaite. So this automated system, which is the kinetic chain, can be engaged in a lot of different ways. So if I had, let's say, a sword. So I have a sword and I want to slash through a bamboo shoot. Notice what happened? Brain goes to the ground, uses the ground to get the body out of the way so I can release in that direction. So same thing with the football. I could throw this football side saddle. So if I hold the football underneath me here and I want to go to that white flag, notice how the football is moving away from me. If I want it to wind up farther, look at that. So my whole body is turning out of the way, but yet the football is in a position to go that way. Most of you think that when you turn the body, the arms go along with it, and that you have to do some fancy stuff to prevent the arms from doing that. We're not defective, you guys, okay? So if I want the football to go that way, I'm not going to pull it in here. That doesn't fit. So brain says I want to go that way. The football comes here. So now it can go back under and through and move in that direction. And you notice how it came through. The only way it can go through is if I go get the ground, use the ground to get out of the way. I don't have to think about using the ground. I don't have to think about clearing my hips. I have to think about just sending the football that way. And we know what it feels like when we throw a football. There's a beautiful little roll off the fingers when you've done it often enough. And for those of you who have not done it often enough, well, you could just toss it underhand and give it a little twist. So even when I'm tossing it underhand to you, brain still has to go get the ground. You do this when you go bowling. Next time you go bowling, when you're using that bowling ball, you'll notice there's a very specific kinetic chain that occurs. So the shoulders only have 20 degrees of range. If I don't move my body out of the way, I'm just going to hit myself. So the body has to get out of the way so my trail arm has access to the target. Very simple. So other benefits that we're going to get from throwing the football around. So you go with your friends, go toss the football at the park, and you'll notice that you can't rush a football throw. Pay close attention. So first and foremost, you see what the kinetic chain is doing, and you go, oh yeah, look at all that stuff is happening all by itself. Yes, because it's an automated system. Number two, pay attention to the timing and the tempo, and you feel like, oh wow, I really am not rushing going back here. It's gathering nicely, and then there's the kinetic chain that begins, and right about here there's this beautiful rush, there's this beautiful slinging effect, and that's where you pick up the speed. Same thing for a baseball pitcher. Baseball pitcher is going to take this beautiful slow wind up before delivering, and once he gets to the ground, watch out. Right about here is where you're going to see that beautiful sling going into the home plate. So we want to do it on different angles as well. This would be your driver. So when you got a driver, the club is a lot longer compared to the wedge. So let's look at a wedge versus a driver here. See the difference? So my wedge, my hands are much closer to me. It's swinging much more underneath me. See that? Notice my hands are a lot more here. Now if I take my driver, you'll notice that the club's got to be a lot further away from me. The ball's going to be in the air, so I'm clipping that tee out of the air. Notice where my hands are now. So I'm holding the football over here for a driver, and I'm holding the football over here for a wedge. So let's have a look at that. So the wedge, if I'm going in this direction, is going to go more away and up. So for those of you who are shanking your short irons or your wedges, you're still trying to make that swing feel like your driver swing. And for those of you who are struggling with the driver, well, it's because you're struggling because you're making your driver swing feel more like a wedge swing. You got to be giving the control to gravity, see where gravity wants to put you, and roll with that one. So here's the driver. I'm going to my white flag, and that's basically where if I have my intermediate point, which is that leaf there, that tells me when I need to let go. And if I was doing a wedge, everything would be coming underneath. There's your wedge. You're going to feel a lot more under and through with the shorter irons, and a lot more around and through with the longer fairway woods and the driver. So we got the different lengths of clubs. We have your timing and tempo, and so you're feeling how the kinetic chain kicks in when you're focused over there. And that's all you need to do is enjoy the little sensations that you get when you focus on your task of throwing the football in that direction. So you've got the right timing of the release, the right tempo for that release, the right swing plane for your release. We're doing great, aren't we? And then now if you want to do a little comparison, if I was throwing a hammer at you, wouldn't that be the same thing? I'm using exactly the same parts of my anatomy to do hammer, to do football, to do fishing, to do swordsmanship. Now, I wanted you to pay close attention here, a little anatomy. See how the handle of the hammer is very narrow on this side and wide on this side? There's a reason for that. This makes the hammer much stiffer and creates a lot more torque in the motion. Now, if you notice how I'm lining up my forearm, the two bones of my forearm, the radius and the ulna, are now stacked on top of each other. And if you look at your anatomy book, you'll notice that the radius and the ulna are triangular in nature, and they tend to be wide like this handle of the hammer, the stem of this hammer, so that you have a lot more compressing power. So when you're thrown this way, see, if I was going to hammer to the side, this would be very weak. That would be very strong. So coming back to the football, you'll notice that's why it's so much fun to throw the pigskin around. When I'm throwing this way, notice how my radius and ulna are lined up that way. Same for tennis. And when I'm going underhand, well, there's my hammer. So if I want to hammer down, it's going to look like that. I want to hammer this way, it's going to go like that. Well, looky here, we have our tilt. This is the tilt I need to hammer through a door frame. And this is the tilt I need to sling a football in that direction. So notice how the elbow leads the forearm leads the hand, and the hand leads these beautiful fingers. So I'm going in that direction. I'm not off plane. I'm not out of sequence. And I know exactly when to release because I've got a very specific target for that. So power, ease, accuracy. It's all there in this drill. Have fun, everybody.